The latest New England with the departure of Bill Belichick. And what better place to find a new head coach than at another successful franchise? Interview requests are out for 3 assistants on John Harbaugh's staff: defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, offensive coordinator Todd Monken, and defensive line coach Anthony Weaver.
It says a lot about the organization, it says a lot about our players, it says a lot about our coaching staff. You don't do it alone. I mean, you got to have a great staff, great organization, and a great team. Players that believe in the plan and are able to execute it at a high level.
Macdonald drawing the most interest after his Triple Crown season, where the Ravens defense led the league in sacks, takeaways, and points allowed. And he confirmed today he has interviewed for multiple openings.
Our focus right now with our guys is trying to improve and really stay sharp and ramp up and make sure we're at our A game, come next weekend. So when we're here, that's what we're focused on. And then fortunately, I can try to compartmentalize it and then, work on, the Zooms and things that happen at night. And I'm doing those at my house.
Macdonald told me this is a professional goal of his to be a head coach in the National Football League, one that he didn't realize was a true reality until he came back to the Ravens last season to take over as defensive coordinator. Reporting in Owings Mills, I'm Morgan Adsit for Sports Unlimited.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6, a bipartisan push to address juvenile crime in Maryland. We take you to Annapolis for day 2 of the legislative session. 5 suspects in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting could be tried together. How a combined case could play out in court.
As the 2024 legislative session gets underway, we take a look at the bipartisan push to address juvenile crime. New developments in the case against 5 suspects charged in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, how they could all face trial together. And we're following breaking news out of Los Angeles as Hunter Biden pleads not guilty to 9 federal tax charges.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala. We have team coverage tonight of ongoing violent crime throughout our state. In a few minutes, Rebecca Pryor has the latest on 5 suspects charged in connection with the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. But first, Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost was in Annapolis today for the second day of the legislative session. She has details on the bipartisan push to address juvenile crime.
Three state senators from both sides of the political aisle are calling for changes to the Juvenile Interrogation Act as conversations get underway about how to address the juvenile crime in Maryland. Lawmakers are back to work in the State House, and the calls are growing louder for action.
I look at it as really a life or death issue. I look at it as an issue of whether or not a young person's going to end up behind bars or if they're going to end up, maybe taking the bar.
We must do something. And right now, the legislature, we're looking at you because you have the power to do something to make this right.
Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger taking issue with the Juvenile Interrogation Act. It requires an attorney to sign off on law enforcement questioning a juvenile, even if the parents approve.
You read them their rights. Because they're a juvenile, yeah, okay, let's add the additional element of asking their parents. But shouldn't the parents have more say than the public defender? And that's where we are on that issue.
Now, State Senator Chris West, a Republican representing all of Baltimore and parts of Carroll counties, teaming up with Senators Mary Beth Caruza, another Republican, and Democrat Senator Ron Watson of Prince George's County.
Our hope is that if we present a bipartisan package to the General Assembly, that they will look upon it favorably.
Speaking on the phone, Senator West says the trio working on several bills, like one changing the intake process at the Department of Juvenile Services and lengthening the probation period, another going after the Interrogation Act.
Try to dial back some of the reforms that have been passed in recent years, a couple of clicks, in order to do something about juvenile crime.
Like Schellenberger, Senator West says parents should have more of a say in their kids' criminal justice problems.
Our feeling is that most parents want their kids to get out of trouble, and they'd rather have the kids tell the police the truth and then deal with it back at home as a family than to have the juvenile being advised by some lawyer they've never met and just talk to over the telephone.
He argues he's hopeful his colleagues will take action, but is realistic about the future of every piece of legislation that he's backing.
We're not going to get all 16 bills enacted, but if we get 5 or 6 bills enacted, that's 5 or 6 bills more than we've enacted in the past 9 years that I've been in Annapolis.
Meanwhile, top prosecutors say lawmakers don't have a choice but to act. What's at stake if lawmakers don't get it right this session?
I think our future is at stake.
Most of these bills are being referred to the Judicial Proceedings Committee, and those conversations will be happening as session gets underway. In the State House, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, more lawmakers are expressing frustration with the Department of Juvenile Services. Senator Corey McCray says he has a good working relationship with the former DJS secretary, but that isn't the case with current Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. And now he's demanding more accountability from the state agency. Take a listen.
I would like that same type of relationship with Secretary Schiraldi. I know that I've reached out to him on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, there has been a level of unresponsiveness. I am drafting a bill because one of the things that I'm concerned about is when we have juveniles that's engaged in a fatal shooting or a non-fatal shooting, I want to understand what is the after action. How, if they were under the purview of DJS. If they were under the purview of DJS, I think that the Secretary Schiraldi has the responsibility to be able to communicate. When did his agency make contact? How do we know that retaliation isn't going to exist? How do we know that someone isn't going to continue to come after this young man or young woman that's under their purview? And he should be able to articulate that in a manner that anybody can understand.
Do you feel like that's happening right now?
Obviously, it hasn't happened, which is why I'm introducing a bill called the DJS Transparency Act of 2024.
When can we see that?
I'm pretty sure you'll see it within the next 7 to 10 days.
Well, some new documents uncovered by Fox 45 News reveal an attempt by prosecutors to try all 5 suspects charged in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting together. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor completes our team coverage with how consolidating these cases could play out in court.
Yeah, the prosecution only wants to go to court once for all 5 suspects, but the defense is fighting to keep their trials separate and, in 2 of the 5 cases, out of the adult court system entirely.
Picking up the pieces following the city's worst mass shooting to date. 2 killed, 28 others injured by a barrage of bullets, bringing a Brooklyn block party to a tragic end. 5 arrests have since been made in connection to the incident, but the city state's attorney now pushing for 1 trial. making a motion for a joint trial. The prosecution arguing the defendants participated in the same or similar acts and the evidence against them also overlaps.
Filing for a joint trial for the state's attorney is common sense.
Local attorney Jeremy Eldridge, who has no relation to this case, says the main justification for consolidation to conserve court resources.
The idea being, let's try the case once, especially where we know there's voluminous evidence, there are multiple witnesses, and it just makes sense to do everything one time as opposed to multiple times.
But the defense opposing the motion, claiming a joint trial would create prejudice.
The disadvantage is obvious. You're going to see a lot of evidence that you may not feel is relevant or you may feel is prejudicial to your client if they involve companion shooting,
potentially causing a jury confusion. In addition to what took place on Brooklyn Day, the state also attempting to include a separate attempted murder charge for 19-year-old Aaron Brown, who was accused of trying to shoot another person in Northeast Baltimore during an unrelated incident back in May.
What could be linking two cases that occurred on different days and appear to be different incidents would be a single piece of evidence, like a gun. And so if the weapon is the same, or if the witnesses are the same, the cases could be tried together.
Ultimately, a judge will decide what's fair and impartial. But if the cases are combined, Eldridge says it could create several logistical challenges for the city's historic courthouse.
The sheer number of defendants that the court will have to accommodate in making sure that they have sufficient courtroom personnel, that they can do it in one of the courtrooms in the Circuit Court of Baltimore City that, frankly, is not big enough size-wise to accommodate a case like this.
And the final factor, potentially keeping these cases apart, 2 of the 5 suspects currently requesting a transfer to juvenile court. If granted, they cannot be tried beside adult defendants.
Now, one advantage that a joint trial could have for the defense is the ability to muddy the waters and create enough confusion between all of these cases that it actually becomes more difficult for the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, we should learn more about how these cases will be proceeding forward, whether it's one trial, whether it's multiple trials on March 7th. That is when a judge is scheduled to rule on the state's motion for a joint trial. Reporting outside of the Mitchell Courthouse, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
If you missed last night's roundtable, it will re-air this Sunday. You can watch it on My TV Baltimore at 1, on Fox 45 at 2, or the CW at 10. You can also stream the roundtable in its entirety at foxbaltimore.com, or you can watch it on our YouTube page. Meteorologist Amy Aronson tracking our next weather maker. Amy, more rain is coming, right?
Yeah, more rain, another flood watch. We're repeating that setup we saw earlier this week. Ground is saturated, and we're going to add more rain on top of that. So flooding will be a concern again. That's why we've got this flood watch out for central parts of Maryland. This goes into effect tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, and will take us through late Friday night due to that flood potential as that weather maker moves into the region. So it's going to be another wet end to the week here. Tonight, though, it's just dry and chilly, so it's quiet for the next 24 hours. But tomorrow night, I'm tracking moderate rain along with some gusty winds. Gusty winds will stick around on Saturday. So although the rain gets out of here for the start of the weekend, we could still see winds gusting as high as 30, 40 miles an hour as that weather maker gets out of here. And that's just our first weather maker in her 7-day forecast. The next one's showing up on Tuesday. This one's coming with some colder air, and that means we are tracking the potential for some snow showers by then. Coming up in a couple of minutes, we'll break down the timeline of both weather makers in more detail. Mary?
All right, Amy, thank you. Hunter Biden pleads not guilty to 9 federal tax charges. The president's son is accused of failing to pay more than $1 million in taxes and filing fraudulent forms with the IRS. He made his initial appearance in a federal courthouse in Los Angeles this afternoon. The judge is proposing a June start date for the trial. Now, Republican lawmakers are conducting their own probe of Hunter Biden's business dealings, accusing President Biden of benefiting financially from them. But they haven't proven those claims. Republicans hope their impeachment inquiry into the president and Hunter Biden's deposition will provide more information.
A rising star in the music industry taking his fight against fentanyl here to Capitol Hill. I'm Atrell Nashar with how Jelly Roll is calling out lawmakers for their inaction.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
More than 150 people die every day from overdoses related to fentanyl and other synthetic opioids. That's according to the CDC. On Capitol Hill today, rapper turned country artist Jelly Roll appeared before a group of senators to call on Congress to act. Sinclair's national correspondent Atra El-Nashar has been covering the hearing. She joins us live from Capitol Hill with what he had to say. Atra?
Hey, good evening, Mary. You know, this is an issue that touches every single community, but it's evaded comprehensive action from Congress. So now the artist Jelly Roll is hoping that his star power helps move the needle. Democrats, Republicans, law enforcement, and a Grammy-nominated artist getting together to address a problem that touches just about every American.
Every drug I've seen, nothing has held a candle to what's happening with fentanyl.
Jason DeFord, known by his stage name Jelly Roll, using his background as a former drug dealer and his platform as a rising voice in the music industry to confront the fentanyl crisis.
I was a part of the problem. I am here now standing as a man that wants to be a part of the solution.
He joined law enforcement leaders Thursday to appear before the Senate Banking Committee, urging the passage of the Fend Off Fentanyl Act. The bill, which is currently stalled in Congress, would declare international trafficking of fentanyl a national emergency, ramp up sanctions against the groups behind it, and use proceeds from sanction enforcement to bolster law enforcement. All agree there's more to do, like cracking down on the illicit financing of drug operations, often involving crypto or apps like WeChat Pay.
Never in my career with the DEA has a criminal organization had the benefit of an encrypted global network.
Where Democrats and Republicans are split is how to start addressing the flow of fentanyl through the U.S. southern border.
We can secure the border. It's an open, bleeding wound.
In 2021, over 90% of fentanyl seizures occurred at legal crossing points.
DeFord calling out their partisan divide.
We don't see nothing happening in D.C. except fights.
Now, DeFord reminded senators, not that they needed reminding, that nothing can happen without cooperation from the House, where currently there's a partisan standoff on government spending that's rooted in differences about what else but border policy.
Oh, so interesting. Where does the Fend Off Fentanyl Act actually stand? What will it take for it to become law?
Yeah, I mean, it's got so much bipartisan support, so usually this is something that would potentially have an easy time passing. It passed unanimously out of the Senate Banking Committee. In the full Senate, it had overwhelming bipartisan support. It was bundled into the upper chamber's National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA. But we're seeing little movement on this or much of anything in the House right now, as House Speaker Mike Johnson is trying to negotiate with members of his own party and with Democrats on government spending and foreign aid.
Atra El-Nashar live on Capitol Hill for us tonight. Thank you. Well, media executives are sounding the alarm about the potential harm that artificial intelligence could pose to the news industry. Speaking before a Senate subcommittee, experts warn AI threatens the news in several ways. AI can alter images and audio without detection, which could cause Americans to lose trust in their local news stations.
The use of AI to doctor, manipulate, or misappropriate the likeness of trusted radio or television personalities risks spreading misinformation or even perpetuating fraud.
AI models also use news content without authorization, meaning not only do news producers lose out on compensation, but their content can be distorted. Senators in both major political parties are calling on Congress to regulate AI development, but progress has been slow.
And I am tracking our next weather maker now as we head through the end of the week. Here's a look at the storm outlook with this system. We are actually included in this general thunderstorm risk. So although the main threat for severe weather will stay south of here, I wouldn't be shocked if we hear rumble of thunder as that main storm system pushes through. All is quiet for tonight before that storm gets here. We're dry, we're clear tonight. I do want to point out where that system is right now because it's well west to here. Doesn't look like much. Looks like a couple of snow showers, right? But as we head over the next 24 hours, it's really going to take shape, and then it's going to swoop in from the south and from the west for us. So it's going to look kind of similar to what we saw back on Tuesday. In the meantime, we're dry. We're dry through Friday morning. No issues for your Friday morning drive. It's Friday evening that we see the showers push in from west to east. Right now, it looks like that's going to happen right around 5 o'clock. The heavier stuff will follow close to 8, 9 o'clock. And then we get this main line of heavy rain. That's when we could hear some thunder right around 11 o'clock, close to midnight. But that's the end of it. That's the grand finale. After that, it sweeps out of here. Winds will pick up. Gusty winds for your Saturday, but at least it looks drier. So here's a quick preview of how much rainfall we're expecting from this system. It's not as much as we saw earlier this week. The main issue is the ground is extra saturated, and now we're going to add on an additional ½ an inch up to close to an inch in some spots, and that's what could create some additional flooding issues as that system moves through tomorrow night. First half of the day, though, is dry. It's tomorrow evening that rain's going to get started, and then it's going to take us through the first part of your Friday night, getting out of here by Saturday morning. So the rest of the weekend will actually be drier. So here's a preview of how that weekend forecast looks. We are tracking that rain. That's going to push in tomorrow night, along with some gusty winds. We could see winds gusting up to 30, 40 miles an hour. Highs still end up in the low 50s. We'll hold on to the low 50s on Saturday. It's going to be a windy day, so still dealing with some wind gusts up to 30, 40 miles an hour, but it does look drier. Sunday remains dry, the winds calm down, and then here comes the colder air. So colder air will push in on Sunday. And that sets us up for another weather maker early next week, and this one's going to come with the threat of some snow. So coming up in a couple of minutes, I'll show you exactly what that means in our full 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Check out this gorgeous winter scene. It's from the Cherahela Skyway, which passes through North Carolina and Tennessee. Look closely at the sea of fog, and you'll find San Antonio's Tower of the Americas. And with an Arctic blast about to freeze the nation's midsection, now is the time to enjoy the beauty of nature in Nebraska. By Sunday, high temperatures will be below zero.
Is social media to blame for children wanting to grow up too fast? I'm Janae Bowens in Washington with a look at this heated debate.
We often accuse children of wanting to grow up too fast, but is social media now robbing younger generations of normal childhood experiences and creativity? The National Desk's Janae Bowens has a deeper look into social media's impact on its youngest users.
With her mother's permission, 14-year-old Jordan Kelman explains why many of her peers are in a rush to look grown up.
I see how people can get upset with how they look, and also how people's mental health can start deteriorating because of how they perceive themselves and compare themselves to other people.
Jordan shares the same concerns many adults have over how social media is negatively impacting teens and even tweens. So things have gotten so bad, people are calling on the beauty store Sephora to require an age limit to shop there.
And she looks at me, she's like, sorry, it's mine now.
This TikToker shares how she had a heated moment with a 10-year-old in Sephora.
She proceeds to open up the package, use the lip balm on her lips, and she's like, no, not for me, I don't like the flavor. Throws the packaging, throws the product on the shelf, and just walks away.
Why is there such free reign?
Mental health expert with JustAnswer.com and Jordan's mom, Jennifer Kelman, says it's clear so many children's innocence has been lost and feels parents are at least partially to blame.
That we all as parents can do better with having a boundary around technology use and social media. And the fear of missing out or your child missing out should not be your guiding principle.
Jennifer says her children don't always like that they can't get on social media, but it appears they see the benefit.
So I'm not constantly seeing that all day long whenever I go onto my phone, but also because I find my self-esteem in other places, like from school, getting good grades, sports, performing my best in sports. So I don't have to look for that self-validation anywhere else.
The Kelmans think less social media might help children realize they don't need to rush to grow up so soon. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens.
Now for a look at your full 10-day forecast. We are weather alert tomorrow because of that threat for some flooding, mainly tomorrow night. After that, windy for the start of the weekend and then cold for the second half. Staying chilly through early next week, and then another weather maker moves in. This one comes with the potential for some snow. I think Tuesday's the day to watch for potential travel disruptions from that. After that, it's just going to stay cold. It's going to feel like winter with high temperatures close to freezing through the remainder of the week. And take a look at some of these overnight lows. They'll be falling into the teens. Mary?
Thank you. Finally,